Mercury retrograde is upon us. We are officially in the pre-shadow, but actual Mercury retrograde does begin July 17th, and it's going to go all the way to August 10th. It is going to be in the sign of Leo, so if you are someone with prominent fixed energy or prominent fire energy in your chart, you're really going to feel this. Now, before we get into it, my name is Sydney. I'm a professional astrologer. I've been studying astrology for over 15 years. I love it so much. I do have my website in the description for those of you who would like to book a reading with me, and do not forget to like and subscribe, and of course comment on this video if you would like to make a contribution to the Mercury retrograde discussion. And you can also let me know where Mercury retrograde will be transiting for you in your housing system. All right, let's get into the video. So I am going to be detailing what to expect from this Mercury retrograde period. I'm also going to be doing horoscopes for each rising sign, so you know exactly where this Leo Mercury retrograde is going to be transiting for you in your housing system and how you can best plan and prepare. So Leo Mercury retrograde is going to be a very interesting time frame, I think. Leo has so much to do with self-expression and also your relationship with self. So I think for a lot of people, this Mercury retrograde is going to really give an opportunity to reassess your connection to yourself. What makes you feel most confident? What really fuels your self-esteem? What type of value do you place on yourself? Like, how do you perceive your sense of self-worth, your personal purpose? All of that is going to come into play during this time. So this is going to be, on one hand, it's going to be a really kind of liberating experience, I think, but it might be challenging for some people because it is going to force you to kind of reckon with certain parts of yourself that maybe you struggle with. Another thing that can happen here too is some type of revisit when it comes to a hobby, a pastime, or something that you deem really pleasurable and enjoyable, because Leo has a lot to do with what brings us joy and happiness and fulfillment. Leo also rules over children, so this is a really good time to dive a little bit deeper into certain memories or experiences that are still very much sticking with your inner child. So healing your inner child is definitely going to be something that pops up during this time. Finding ways to really reclaim your joy, especially if your joy has been like blah this past year or longer. We live in very weird times, so I totally get it. Another interesting thing that can happen here, Leo does rule over the heart, so of course romance can definitely become a factor, as well as physical intimacy. Leo has a lot to do with romance in the more playful side of the spectrum, so you might find that you get a little more playful during this time, or you try to spice up your romantic life. Leo, in having so much to do with self as well, you might be surprised by the type of attention that you attract during this time. Now, this is going to pertain to certain people over others, depending on where Mercury retrograde is transiting for you, but you can receive some unexpected attention. Depending on how you perceive this or what is warranting that attention, you do want to be a little bit mindful about how you present yourself to the world. There can definitely be some misalignment when it comes to your intention versus like the actual outcome of that intention or whatever action you took with good intentions in mind. So don't be surprised if certain things that you try to embark upon, especially any type of activities that relate to other people and your influence on others, don't be surprised if things go a little bit wonky. That's very common here because of that attention-based component of Leo energy. Also, just in a generalized sense, Mercury retrograde, you always want to tend to your technology. So now is the time. Like, if you're watching this before the Mercury retrograde actually begins, back up your files, like make sure your technology, your phones, make sure everything is in working order. Same thing with your car, your automobile, how you get around in the world. If you ride a bike, whatever, make sure that you have your oil changed, make sure you inflate your tires. Like, I know it sounds a little bit woo-woo, and maybe for some people you think this is a little too intense in terms of taking precautions, but Mercury rules over modes of transportation. It rules over technology, especially technology that allows us to communicate. Phones, email, computers, like the social media. Those are the things you want to tend to during this time. That way you avoid any mishaps. Like if you're writing an email, especially if it's to like an employer or a colleague, double, triple, quadruple check that email. Mercury also has a lot to do with our daily routine and just the menial little tasks that we engage in every single day, like chores, for example, running errands. Scheduling, that's another thing, making appointments, making phone calls. all of that. You really want to double, triple, quadruple check to make sure everything is in order and you're not overlooking anything. And that includes like making sure that you're arriving on time for a scheduled appointment or something. You know what I mean? Like you don't want to be a whole day late to your doctor appointment because you got things mixed up. Another thing you need to be mindful of during this time is travel. Mercury also has a lot to do with travel because it does rule over like modes of transportation like automobiles. So when it comes to planning a trip and taking a trip, again, double, triple check everything. I always like to recommend too that if you're going on a plane and you have like luggage with you, make sure you have a luggage tag. Make sure there's something about your piece of luggage that kind of sets it apart from other luggage. Like even if you have to buy a polka dot suitcase, I don't care. Just make sure your luggage is like very distinguishable. That way no one can like mistake it for theirs and you don't have any issues like that. Also double check on reservations, call ahead if you need to like confirm things. Another thing that Mercury retrograde can impact, of course, is our relationships because Mercury has a lot to do with communication and socialization. So during this Mercury retrograde, it is no exception. You can definitely have people come back from the past. Retrograde is like a fancy word for redo, reassess, revisit, and that can definitely include relationships, both romantic, again, Leo rules over the heart, and also our platonic relationships, like having an old friend come back, you know? So this is a good opportunity to mend relationships if you feel like that relationship still has value. Remember, value is going to be kind of a big theme here. If you feel that relationship has value and it brings you joy and it honors who you are as a person, then yeah, you know, this could lead to some type of conflict, mending a conflict or fixing something. If the relationship is one that historically has made you feel very insecure, has challenged your self-esteem, if that person comes back, that's up to you to decide if you want to keep engaging with that person. I would maybe be wary if historically this person has made you feel some type of negative way about yourself, but that is of course up to you. Now we are going to talk about the horoscopes for each rising sign so you can understand where this Mercury retrograde is going to be transiting for you in your housing system and you can prepare. Now I will say if you utilize the Placidus housing system like myself, you do want to pay attention of course to the degrees of your housing systems, because sometimes what's going to happen for a lot of us is Mercury retrograde is going to start in a certain house, but it's going to retrograde back into another house. So it might start in your fourth and then move all the way back to your third. So if that's the case, I would just watch like both horoscopes. Watch the one I talk about where Mercury retrograde is going to be moving through the fourth. And then you can also watch the one with Mercury retrograde moving through the third. Like both are going to be important here for you. All right, let's start with Leo ascendant. So if you have Leo ascendant, Mercury retrograde is going to be transiting through your first house. So during this time, this is really controversial and this is a total hot take, but I don't care. I actually think Mercury retrograde moving through the first is a great time to change up your look. I know that's like a cardinal sin. Of course, you want to be mindful, and I would be mindful with like elective surgery, like cosmetic surgery. But if you're wanting to like change up your wardrobe or dye your hair or like, do something that is not necessarily going to have like a permanent forever consequence, I actually think this is a great time to do that. I think Mercury retrograde, especially in a sign like Leo, which has a lot to do with appearance, it has a lot to do with hair. I think that retrograde gives you an opportunity to kind of experiment and try out new things. So if you are a Leo ascendant, you might have a strong desire to change up your appearance, change up your hair. And honestly, I'm not going to stop you. Go have fun. I really don't personally at least think it's that big of a deal. During this time, you can also be receiving a lot more attention, especially attention for the things you say. So be a little bit mindful because of course this could be good attention, but depending on, if you have like foot and mouth syndrome, or depending on like how carefully you're choosing your words, you might ruffle some feathers. People might be having stronger reactions to you. And this can include online presence. So this can include, making a certain post on social media and people have like a really strong reaction to it. With this transit as well, because the first house just has so much to do with self and like your decisions, your motivations, how you move through the world, you might be reassessing some commitments you've previously made. You might be in the process of reconsidering or like reflecting on certain decisions or plans that you had for like, maybe the fall time frame, but maybe you're kind of like, I don't know if I actually want to go through with that. So this gives you a good time to reassess and reconsider some plans that you've been thinking about making, but maybe you're just like, okay, I actually kind of changed my mind on that. Also, again, because the first house has so much to do with self and direction, of course, you can expect some people to come back from the past. You can also expect some technology issues here. Unfortunately, people that have this transit, they're going to be experiencing like a lot of the classic traditional Mercury retrograde ailments, but you can still prepare and plan and mitigate these risks. If you have Virgo ascendant, this Mercury retrograde is going to be moving through your 12th house. This is a very, very intense one. I will say the 12th house, it's very foggy. It has a lot to do with like our hidden desires, our subconscious. So on one hand, this Leo Mercury retrograde can actually inspire you to think more deeply about your childhood experiences. This is a really good time to do some, heal your inner child and confront or face any memories or experiences that are still kind of painting your inner child. And, this just gives you an opportunity to kind of reassess, reflect, and actually get to the bottom of some things. Another thing that can happen here is truth revealed. So this is really good, especially if you have some conflict or some weird, like suspicious energy going on in your life right now where it's like something doesn't seem quite right. This Mercury retrograde in Leo having a lot to do with warmth, with light, this can bring about a period of truth, especially truth that has been suppressed, and this kind of ties back to like that inner child healing, like, coming to this point of clarity and transparency with yourself. Now, another thing that can happen here too, this is kind of exciting depending on how you perceive it, is you can experience some attention you did not expect to receive. It's possible that you've actually had some eyeballs on you for a little bit now. And this Mercury retrograde brings forth kind of, again, this truth revealed where someone's going to step forward to you and be like, hey, I feel this type of way about you, or I've been in a non-creepy way watching you, or, you can receive a lot of praise and acclaim for a job well done that you were not expecting to receive any attention for. So this is actually a really good time and an interesting time, especially like for artists, creatives, and anybody who is putting work out there, but maybe the response or the reception has been kind of slow or dull. If you have a Libra ascendant, this Leo Mercury retrograde is going to be moving through your 11th house, which is the house of community, okay? This house, like this transit period, is really going to shake up your social life. So this could note, of course, people coming back from the past, especially people that you maybe didn't have a defined romantic relationship with. Like maybe there was tension, maybe there was some subtle passion there, but you couldn't act on it. Maybe it was the case was that they were in another relationship or you were. This could note a romantic prospect that never really got to kind of fulfill itself coming back. Okay, so this could note a period where someone you met who was in a relationship and you liked them, they're back now and this time they're single. So this could note some type of like a need to finish your business with somebody. Another thing that can happen here is some type of shift when it comes to your connection with coworkers. So this could note a coworker you really like that maybe gets fired. Maybe you gain a new employer, some new employees. There might be a shift to your actual work relationships that kind of comes out of the blue. Another thing, the 11th house also has a pretty strong sway and influence on technology. So you need to be very mindful with your technology, okay? Especially technology in the workplace and like basically how you interact with others in a professional sense. So going back to what I was saying earlier in the video, like if you have to send a work-related email, you need to triple check that. Another thing that can happen here too is some type of negotiating that has to take place. This could be negotiating for a promotion or a better salary, but it's possible in your work environment or just around the people you work with, there's some type of negotiation that has to take place. You might have to like vouch for yourself, defend your position. This is another transit similar to some other ones where you can receive some attention. Now, the 11th house is a little controversial. It's a little provocative. So sometimes this attention might be, I don't want to say it's bad attention because that's not really it, but this can tie back to like having to stand up for yourself, having to negotiate for yourself. So it might be that the people around you are shocked by this kind of uptick in self loyalty. So it might be that the people around you are kind of taken aback or surprised by your new way of like defending yourself and standing up for yourself. If you have a Scorpio ascendant, this Leo Mercury retrograde is going to be moving through your 10th house, which has a lot to do with public perception, career, your sense of purpose. So this is a really complicated one. Leo is a very stubborn sign, as is, that Scorpio ascendant. So what can kind of happen here is there might be some type of stalling in the workplace or like with your goals and your ambitions. Now, I will say the stalling isn't like forever, it's temporary. It might be that there's this sense of stagnancy in your workplace or like when it comes to a certain goal or ambition you have, and that Leo energy can kind of even lead to some type of like 2 steps back. Like maybe you reach a dead end in some type of professional endeavor or again like a goal, and you have to kind of take a step back and reassess what you're doing. So this could note a period that requires a lot of brainstorming in order to progress and proceed with your goals and aspirations. Now, this is not necessarily a bad thing. It might also be that you are in desperate need of some type of hiatus. You might be needing more rest. You might have to take a hiatus or a break or like some type of, taking a period for yourself to rest, recoup, and regenerate your energy. So that's another thing that can happen here too, is you might just be in deep need of some necessary work-life balance. So taking some time personally is likely. Another thing that can happen here, similar to Mercury retrograde moving through the 12th, is that you can receive some type of information that allows for a lot of clarity and a lot of enlightenment. This might occur more in your professional life or when it comes to a certain goal. Like, I'm trying to think of a good example, but like maybe if you were overlooked for something in the work environment, you find out that actually the reason you were overlooked had nothing to do with your performance, but maybe it was nepotism. Like maybe the person who got the promotion is the daughter of the boss. Like I'm just trying to give an example. So there can be some stagnancy in work, but it's followed by a huge kind of like surge of energy and motivation and good news. So anything that like doesn't work out during this time or anything that stalls, it's totally meant to be. I don't want you to worry. And it doesn't mean that life is going to come crashing down. It just means that there's some type of reconfiguration so that you can move forward doing something that is so much more better aligned with you and for you. Another thing that can happen here too, worth mentioning, is there can be some type of correction or some type of clarification when it comes to reputation or any type of narrative about you that just is not really true. Like if you have been, if there's a rumor going around or if someone is saying something about you, it's going to get taken care of very quickly with this transit. If you have a Sagittarius ascendant, then this Leo Mercury retrograde is going to be transiting your 9th house of travel. Yay! This is a fun one, but it does note a need for caution when it comes to traveling. So if you're going to take a trip during this time, which odds are you probably will, or plan a trip, you need to double, triple, quadruple check. Again, like I said earlier, invest in a suitcase that is like unmistakably yours. I don't care if it has a bunch of ponies on it. I don't care if it's neon green, like just get a suitcase that is undistinguishably yours. Make sure it has like a name tag and everything like that. You just want to make sure when you're traveling that, your stuff is your stuff and there's no risk of anything getting lost. Same with like booking tickets. You really want to make sure that when you're booking your tickets, it's the exact date, you have all the times correct, you have the locations correct. I will say sometimes, like in terms of, going to the airport and whatever, boarding a plane, if that's what you're doing, there might be like, how they try to pull that stuff where they're like, oh, we're all full, but it's like you bought a ticket. Like they overbook these flights. It's crazy. If that happens though, you will be compensated. So flying and traveling in general can be a little bit wonky, but some of this wonkiness can reroute you into like a brand new spontaneous adventure. So things can be very spontaneous right now for you for sure. This can also note reassessing your education, or, maybe you're revisiting some type of hobby or interest that before maybe you attempted it, but you kind of gave up or you lost interest very quickly. This could note some type of like reignition when it comes to a hobby or an interest of yours or a curiosity, and you kind of move forward with actually learning more about the subject you're really interested in or investing in your hobby, even if it means investing some money into it. If you have a Capricorn ascendant, this Leo Mercury retrograde is going to be transiting your 8th house. This is a really intense one. It's very heavy. On one hand, I will say this is kind of a classic indication of being given a lot of opportunity to kind of reflect on your inner child, confronting certain experiences and memories that, are very sore for you. They bring forth this sense of sadness, even a sense of grief. So this can be an emotionally trying time, but it's not hopeless. It's not lost. It's necessary for you to progress in your life without carrying so much baggage. So healing your inner child and also healing your sense of like your self-esteem, your sense of self-worth, your personal sense of value. That's also on the table here, which I think is really, really amazing. You're likely going to undergo a lot of personal transformations during this time. So don't be surprised, even though it's a Mercury retrograde, even though it happens like 3 times a year and it's seemingly kind of normal, it's also pretty short-lived. It's only like 3 weeks. You can actually undergo a lot of transitions during this time frame because Leo 8th house just naturally has a lot to do with a lot of personal transformations and transitions. So this can be a catalyst for that. That said, this could note getting a new job, moving. Like there's a lot of ways that your life can really shift under this transit period. Even though, Mercury isn't necessarily associated with like huge life transitions, because it's in the 8th, it can definitely bring that forward. This is another one where you might have to reassess some commitments. It might be that you've made some commitments or you have like long-term plans and you come to realize like, okay, I don't know how this actually is going to work, or I don't know how this is going to like fit into what's going on in my life right now. That's just because the 8th house actually has a lot to do with commitments. And of course, Cap Ascendant is very forward thinking. It's very much about progress, achievements, making decisions that hopefully have longevity to them. But this Mercury retrograde can give you an opportunity to kind of reassess and reflect. That doesn't mean you're necessarily going to go back on your commitments or things that you've planned and agreed to, but there might be some tweaking to the plan. This is a good time to brainstorm and figure out, okay, how can I actually go about this plan, but do so in an efficient and effective way? Now, because the 8th house also rules over debts, this could note some type of financial outpour or spending. It might be that this is unexpected spending, like maybe an unexpected debt shows up. Whatever the case might be, there can be some financial outpour. However, the 8th house also has a lot to do with inheritances. So this could also note money coming in, especially money you didn't expect. If you have Aquarius ascendant, this Mercury retrograde is going to be moving through your 7th house of relationships. All right, let's get into this one because this is crazy. So having Mercury retrograde transiting your 7th is a classic indication of having people from the past pop back up, especially people that you were formerly committed to, engaged to, in a romantic relationship with. So if you recently underwent a breakup, this is going to be that point in time, most likely where that person comes back. And maybe they try to make amends. Maybe they try to get some closure from the situation. It might even be that they try to like hook up with you one last time. You know what I mean? Leo energy, it can be kind of flippant at times. Don't get me wrong, it's passionate. It is dramatic, but that drama can kind of lead to that energy of like, let's just do it one last time. Like, let's have one last hurrah. You know what I mean? It's like soap opera energy. So you need to be really mindful about what kind of behavior you tolerate during this time. This can also note breaking up and it not lasting. People who break up during a Mercury retrograde, like, look, if the relationship is super toxic, you're probably just going to have to try a little bit harder to like really get away from that person. So you can still break up during this time, or, maybe there's something about your relationship you have to reassess and reflect on. Like maybe the way that you two are navigating problems in the relationship is not the best. Maybe you're having difficulty sharing space in the relationship. Like maybe one person is really demanding or kind of makes everything about them, or not giving space for that other person to express emotions and things like that. So this could note some type of reassessment when it comes to like how you're going to make room in the relationship for both people, or how you're going to address conflict. Now, if you do break up during this time, there is an increased potential that it's not going to last. But I will say again, if you break up and you really want it to last, you're probably going to have to try very hard to make sure you have firm boundaries, like blocking them, you know what I mean? Like especially if the relationship is toxic. If there's this addictive quality, you're going to have to try very hard to really get away. Now, I will say too, sometimes what can happen here is that even friends can come back from the past. A lot of the times it is people that you are close to, or at least had some type of like commitment in the relationship or in the connection. So this could note a friend that you lost touch with that comes back from the past, or a friend that maybe things weren't working out, you lost compatibility, and they come back for whatever reason. You might also undergo a friendship breakup during this time. Similar to that romantic stuff, it might not last. You might have to try a little, if you want it to last, you might have to try a little bit harder to make sure it does last. If you have a Pisces ascendant, this Leo Mercury retrograde is going to take place in your 6th house, which has a lot to do with work and daily routine and health. So when it comes to health, this could kind of make your immune system a little more sensitive during this time. You might be feeling more tired, a little more lethargic. That retrograde component of Mercury can cause you to kind of stop. So you might have to take a pause in your life and really take some downtime, or just like, it might be that you're under a little more stress during this time. So you desperately need to find ways to, manage that stress so that it doesn't manifest in the body. As always, disclaimer, astrology is not a substitute for medical advice. These are just trends and patterns I've noticed as a professional astrologer, but as always, for medical advice, you need to seek out a medical professional. Now, another thing that can happen here too is some type of reframing or reconfiguration in your daily routine, especially when that leads to more joy and happiness. So again, you might struggle with work-life balance. You might be under a lot of stress, especially stress that you maybe put on yourself by being a people pleaser or by doing things that you technically don't need to do, but you just overextend yourself. You do feel, people that naturally have like a Leo 6, they do naturally shine in the workplace and they feel really good when they're being productive and they're of service. So I totally get that, but you might need to kind of take a break from that and relax. When it actually comes to work, you might be in a transition right now. This can note having just accepted a new job, or maybe you just got promoted. Odds are there might be some type of learning curve or adjustment period in your work life. So you might be on the cusp of undergoing a big transition in your work life. A lot of the times this can be positive, like it can have positive associations, but there might be an adjustment period, or again, like a learning curve. If you have an Aries ascendant, this Mercury retrograde is going to be moving through your 5th house of romance. So similar to all the 7th house information I just talked about, this could bring forth people from the past. Now, I will say, unlike the 7th, which has a little more to do with like long-term serious commitments, this could bring back like a situationship, as the kids call it. This could bring back a fling from the past. This can also point to a moment, if you're like involved in a fling or a situationship, where you two have kind of that really serious talk where it's like, okay, what are we doing here? So if you're in a situationship or some type of fling and you're not getting that commitment you need, this Mercury retrograde can give you that necessary push and, that sense of self-worth, no judgment, to actually end the relationship and move on so that you're not wasting your time anymore. Now, if you're already in a relationship and there is commitment, there might be something about that relationship that you two have to reassess. Now, I will say the energy does lean in a more positive direction. So this could note patching up an issue and finally moving on from it, or revisiting the spark, like reclaiming the youthful joy that your relationship might have initially inspired for you two, which can also improve bedroom circumstances. So this could note like reassessing your sex life, basically, reassessing your intimate life, getting more compatible, getting more in alignment. Now, that said, your fertility can increase during this time, so be very mindful when engaging in physical intimacy, because you can absolutely conceive, even if you are or even if you're using protection. And this is just because Leo rules over children. The 5th house rules over children. So Mercury, fast-paced, idealistic, very, it's going. So you can definitely get pregnant during this time if you are not careful. The last thing I will say about this one, and again, this might be a hot take, it might be controversial, but you might undergo a change to your appearance, because the 5th house does have a lot to do with self-expression. And, I think Mercury retrograde is actually a really good time to experiment. I will say you want to be mindful with elective surgery or cosmetic surgery, but when it comes to like changing up your hair or changing up your wardrobe, I actually think Mercury retrograde is a great time to do that, especially in a sign like Leo. It's fun, it's playful, it's meant to be, your relationship with self is meant to be explored, including how you present yourself. one last thing, I lied. I do have another thing to say about this. You might return to or revisit some type of hobby. That's another thing that can happen here. If you have a Taurus ascendant, then this Mercury retrograde is going to be moving through your 4th house, which has a lot to do with family. Now, before I get into the meat and potatoes, I do want to give a big disclaimer. Your fertility can increase during this time. That's because Leo rules over children. The 4th house rules over family, and it has a lot to do with fertility. Mercury retrograde can, even though retrograde is associated with like slowing things down, it can actually kind of speed things up in some cases. So you can get pregnant during this time if you are not mindful, okay? Now, for those of you trying to get pregnant, this is a great time to try. Like, I would take advantage of the energy for sure. Now, when it comes to family in general, this could note some type of family reunion or some type of family conflict, or maybe a sore spot in the family that finally gets healed, or maybe there's some clarity and closure that is delivered to you that makes you feel a little bit better about your relationship with your family and also about your upbringing, your relationship with your inner child. So you can receive a lot of clarity and closure and like emotional reassurance, I guess, enlightenment when it comes to family dynamics and relationships. Now, in a more fun note, because Leo energy, it does have a lot to do with creativity and hobbies and like self-expression. This can note some type of renovation of the home. It might be that you are really wanting to redo your kitchen or something, or, even get a new bedspread, like do something with your space that spruces it up and brings more joy, like finding ways to kind of tend to your personal space that really satisfies and satiates you on an emotional level and brings forth more comfort, more security, and more safety. So this can actually be really fun when it comes to like spending time in your home, redecorating some things. You might also be craving more intimacy, more, time with people that you really care about and feel very close to. So you might be avoiding like going out and socializing and instead spending more time with your pre-existing like relationships, like your loved ones, your friends, your family, your partner, things like that. If you have a Gemini ascendant, this Mercury retrograde is going to be moving through your 3rd house. This is the classic Mercury retrograde experience. That is because the 3rd house naturally has so much to do, like the themes that it represents: communication, cognition, travel, anything related to like automobiles, technology. That is what Mercury is naturally all about, and that is what the 3rd house is about. So if Mercury retrograde is transiting your 3rd house, you need to be very mindful about what you say. You're more prone to miscommunications, mishaps. So everything I said in the beginning of the video about some of those really classic and generic Mercury retrograde experiences, that all applies to you. So that said, depending on how early you're watching this, get your oil changed if you drive a car, inflate your tires, make sure your bike is in working condition if you ride a bike. Like, make sure if you're booking a flight, you have everything double, triple checked. Make sure when you're traveling, you have a luggage tag, you have a piece of luggage that is very much unmistakably yours. Make sure that when you're scheduling appointments, you get email confirmations. Hold on to your receipts, like always ask for a receipt. You just want to really make sure that you are protecting yourself from anything going amiss or awry. The same is true when signing contracts. So if you have to like put your signature in ink or whatever, if you have to e-sign, make sure that everything is like, look over everything triple, quadruple times. If you're signing something a little more complex, make sure you have a lawyer look it over. Like, I'm not saying this to scare you. I just want to make sure you're prepared. That way you mitigate any unfavorable risks. Now, in a fun sense, this can definitely bring back some people from the past, especially people that maybe you had like a really flirty dynamic with, but nothing ever panned out. Maybe there is a certain person that you really admire that you've seen around town and they come into your life and you can actually befriend them and get closer to them. So this can bring an opportunity where you get closer to some people that you find interesting or attractive. You know what I mean? Like, this is an exciting time for meeting new people, making new friends. When it comes to social media, you might undergo some type of like surge in viewers, or, if you are a creator or an artist of any type, this is a great time to like try to put your work out there, especially if things have been dull. I think that's kind of really the emphasis here. Like, if things have been dull for you or not panning out, this is a really good time to really put yourself out there because the tide can turn with that retrograde. Now, for some people, this could slow things a little bit down in terms of like attention or reception if you are an artist, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It might be that you are suffering from writer's block or you have some type of like creative, blockage. This time can give you necessary rest and kind of help you work through that. And last but certainly not least, if you have a Cancer ascendant, this Leo Mercury retrograde is going to be moving through your second house of finances. That said, the second house has a lot to do with earned income. So in some cases, Mercury retrograde, even though it has this association with slowing things down, sometimes what can actually happen is it can speed things up. So this could note a new source of income, especially if you've been job hunting. Keep in mind, Mercury retrograde can interrupt or break up some type of stagnancy or break up your routine. So if your routine is already kind of stagnant or you've been looking for a job and not having luck, this can bring that break, like that necessary, break that you need. It can bring forth new opportunities, new financial prospects. For some, it could lead to some type of financial return, like a tax return or receiving money that you didn't know you had or getting like a surprise check in the mail that you weren't expecting. So there might be some kind of like financial saving grace here. Now, that said, there might be some unexpected spending during this period. So it might be that you have unexpected expenses you weren't anticipating. I will say sometimes this has more to do because it's not the 8th house, which does have more to do with debt. The second house, it's a little more positive financially, in my opinion. So sometimes this is just more about you knew you had a big purchase coming up, and this is when you pull the trigger and you make the purchase. So it might just be that you've been planning to make a very big purchase, and this Mercury retrograde transiting your second gives you that opportunity and that room to finally make the purchase. It might still hurt a little bit, but odds are if you are making a purchase, it's necessary. It's been needing to happen. And this could note an increased need to also, when it comes to big purchases like home ownership, car, you really want to triple, quadruple check any contracts that you're signing. And if it's super serious, of course, get a lawyer to look it over. You just want to make sure anything you're committing yourself to that requires some type of spending, you're really looking it over and making sure all is good. This can also note being approved for a loan. That's another way this energy can manifest, like finally receiving word or some type of acceptance when it comes to finances. Another thing that can be done here too is because the second house has so much to do with your foundation, your sense of security. On one hand, this can note reassessing your priorities, reassessing what makes you feel happy, what makes you feel of value, increasing your self-esteem and your confidence. It might be a little bit painful or emotionally challenging depending on what your relationship with yourself looks like right now, but it can be very, very rewarding. And the last thing I will say, similar to Mercury retrograde transiting the 4th, you might undergo some type of change to your actual home environment. This could note redecorating something, redoing something. Maybe this big purchase has to do with your home, like you're finally, gonna go through with some type of renovation, or maybe you're gonna invest in new decor. Whatever the case might be, you might be investing in your home so that you feel better when you're there. Okay, so that's everything we can expect from this Leo Mercury retrograde period. And again, it's going to be July 17th to August 10th of 2025, of course. I think it's going to be really fun and exciting. I think it's going to spice things up for sure. And you can let me know in the comments where this Mercury retrograde will be transiting for you in your houses. And are you excited? Are you nervous? I want to hear it all. You can dish. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy my content. I greatly appreciate the support so much. I do have my website in the description for those of you who would like to book a reading with me. I offer a lot of different types, and do not forget to sign up for my email list if you would like to receive exclusive promotions, discounts, and astrological insights. Mwah!